Okay, everyone, my clock's showing 2 o'clock. Let's start the meeting. Welcome everybody to the April 29th special meeting of the Turlock Subbasin Joint Technical or the Turlock Subbasin Technical Advisory Committees. I'm just going to go over some quick rules here that you see on your screen, or more likely some reminders, and then we'll get started. So pretty basic stuff. Don't put us on hold. If you're on the phone, in the Zoom world, I don't know if anyone even does that anymore. Go on mute unless you wish to speak. Please unmute. It still happens. Even to this day, people forget to unmute. And then, obviously respectful dialogue, all of the things that we've been doing already. And then we have a couple different times to comment, members of the public, for them to comment on items either not listed on the agenda, which would be during the public participation item, or items that are listed on today's agenda during that time. So there's plenty of ample opportunity for public comment, which is always encouraged. You could use the raise hand feature if you want. We'll try and check that as frequently as we can in Zoom. That's located in in a lot of versions of Zoom. In the reactions portion, as you see illustrated on the slide picture here, in the reactions portion of your heads up display in Zoom. And I believe *9, if you're on the phone, indicates that as well. Or you can just, at the appropriate time, go off of mute and speak when needed. And then we're recording the meeting. It'll be on turlockgroundwater.org and on our YouTube channel, hopefully as early as tomorrow morning after everything renders. And meeting materials are already available online on the meeting event page at turlockgroundwater.org. And there's a couple there that are going to be presented today on, I believe, budget and budget recommendation, and also on the public review process, some quick slides that are up there for your reference as well. So that is it for me. Michael and Kevin, go ahead and enjoy running your meeting.
Thank you, Herb. Good afternoon, everybody. So this is the Joint Technical Advisory Committee. I'm Michael Cook, representing the West Turlock Subbasin, and we have Kevin Kaufman representing the East Turlock Subbasins. We kind of do a double act here and take partner up on various things and then do other things separately. So the first thing I want to do is call to order the meeting at the West Turlock GSA. I notice we have representatives from Denair, Delhi, TID, Merced ID, Waterford, Ceres, and Jim Alves from Modesto. Is there anybody I've missed? Any agency? So you still just scrolling through one more time. So that's 7 people. So that's enough for a quorum. So at 2:03 p.m. on this afternoon, I call the meeting of the West Turlock Subbasin GSA Technical Advisory Committee to order. Over to you, Kevin.
Thank you, Walt. It doesn't look like we have a quorum yet, but I got a text just a minute ago from Dennis, so we'll have a quorum shortly, unless I'm missing somebody. It's just myself and Matt at this point, Matt Beeman. Is that correct? Hearing nobody. Yeah, we don't have a quorum yet, but we'll open it as soon as Dennis gets here.
Okay. Well, on the bright side, we don't have any action items today, so we won't hold up our work. So we've called to order. So moving to item number 4, this is public participation. This is the time set aside for members of the public to directly address the Technical Advisory Committee on any item of interest to the public that's within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Technical Advisory Committee. So you can either talk on items as they come up on the agenda, talk about them now, or talk about general items for discussion right now. So with that, I will open public participation. Anybody wish to speak under public participation? Any hands raised, Herb? I don't see any.
Not seeing any hands, but if anyone does wish to speak, you could just unmute and address the committees now if you want.
Okay, we're hearing nothing under public participation. We'll move to item number 5, budget recommendation. It's the fiscal year 21-22 budget discussion regarding estimates for monitoring well installations, added sustainability plan items, and the preparation of an annual report. So I'll hand that over to Michael Clipper and Debbie Liebersbach.
Hi, Michael. Did you want me to start?
Yeah.
We didn't coordinate very well.
Yeah,
beforehand.
I thought you were going to start anyway.
I figured, but I just wanted to double check because your name was on the thing. So I was like, oh, okay. So hold on just a second. Let me try and share my screen. Thank you, Herb. Let's see. Does that show up for everyone or no?
We're not seeing anything yet.
Okay, hold on. Oh, wait. Hold on. I'm going back. Share screen. That helps first. And then share.
There we go.
Okay.
Yep.
Does that work? Let's
yes.
see. Oh, that doesn't work. Hold on. Does that? For some reason, it's set up for 2 screens, and so it's doing weird things. So I'm just going to use this, if that works. Okay. So for the 2021-2022 fiscal budget, we have 3 proposed projects to be funded. The first is an annual report, and this would be the first annual report that the GSAs are required to submit to the Department of Water Resources. And those annual reports are due in April of 2022, just a couple months after our GSPs are required to be submitted. So, so we need to budget for that. There are monitoring wells that are needed to fill data gaps. And so we're proposing to fill the obvious data gaps that we know of now. And so that's what's incorporated into this proposal. And then lastly, budget adjustment for the remainder of the GSP to cover unbudgeted expenses and costs. So let me talk a little bit about each of those. As I said before, our first annual report is due April, I think it's April 1st, actually, 2022. And from what I've heard from the critically overdrafted subbasins, these reports are not in task. And it includes a lot of data. And so for our first report, because it's only 2 months after we adopt the GSP, we won't really be reporting on how we're implementing the GSP because we just haven't had any time to implement it. So really this first report is just to bring the data up to date. So the GSP will cover essentially the data, historic data up until 2015. And so this annual report will go from 2015 to 2021. And so it brings us up to date and provides that information as the Department of Water Resources reviews our GSP. They can also review the data sets from the annual reports to understand the conditions within the basin and what have you. And so, so that is it's my understanding will be kind of the main purpose of this first annual report. The technical team is recommending that we update our groundwater model from 2015 to 2021 as we go through that process, because the amount of effort required to do some of these other things that are required in the report will be a significant portion of that cost. And some of it could be pulled from the model, and it's our best current means of generating some of that data. And so that's why they're suggesting that we go through this process. It's our best way of analyzing surface water interaction and calculating the change in storage. And so, so there's that. The other thing is it not only meets the annual report needs, but it also provides a tool that we can use in the future. So, so that I think is a added bonus in going this route. Our neighboring subbasins are discussing and planning something similar as well. And so there would be a calibrated model across basically the 3 subbasins, Merced, Turlock and Modesto. And so there's an added benefit of that as well. And lastly, it provides a consistent data set. We're using the model to generate some of these things within the GSP. And so if we tried to approach it in a different manner outside of the GSP, then that in this annual report, then that can create some issues that would then have to be resolved later when we do update the model. And that creates confusion, particularly as the Department of Water Resources is evaluating our GSP. So with that, the estimated cost is about $167,000, not a small amount of money, but again, it is updating everything for 6 years and submitting the annual reports. In future years, it would be estimated to be much less expensive because you're not incorporating so much. Just so you know, the consultant team did come up with a different amount initially, and it was significantly more. And we worked with them to reduce the cost. They reduced the number of meetings, so that's to be recognized. There's also some cost savings because our neighboring subbasins are updating the model as well, and so they're incorporating that into the concept. And then we're hoping to streamline and be more efficient in gathering the data, so there isn't as much, kind of calling back and with all the different agencies, because there's quite a few of us. So anyway, I'll stop there. That's the annual report, and I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. And I think Phyllis is here as well in case you have some technical questions. Okay, and just so you know that the cost would be, as we move forward with the annual report, we would propose that the costs be shared amongst the two GSAs. But right now, for today, it's the West Turlock who is going through and developing a recommendation for our board. I think the East Turlock Subbasin GSA already adopted their budget. So just for your reference. So the next item is the monitoring wells. So
Debbie, I don't have a question. I just had a comment on the previous one. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Can I add a comment?
Sure.
On the first annual report. We did discuss this at the ad hoc committee. There were a few of us that felt that the estimate, even though reduced, is still too high. And there's a lot of things that we don't have to do that the consultant has put in this number, and we don't think it's necessary. So we, for a budget number for the west side, I think it's fine. We're not going to budget this amount for the East Turlock Subbasin GSA. We're going to budget a smaller amount, just to add information. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Anything else? Okay. Monitoring wells. So this is a map showing some of the monitoring wells within the subbasin, and it looks like a lot, and there is a lot, but there are a few specific data gaps that we are aware of at this point in time, and so that's what we're proposing to fill with this project. It's intended to be a 2-year project, and so for the costs that you're going to see, divide that by 2, because we want to budget half this coming year and then half the following year. And the idea is to do the design and begin construction perhaps that the first year, and then finish it up the second year. And these fiscal years are July to June. And so we would continue the construction past June into July and perhaps August as necessary to finish the project. And so just recognize that's the intent of this. So the idea is to fill data gaps along the rivers. There aren't a lot of wells adjacent to the river. And so we would work with our adjoining subbasins to identify locations where we could have wells in similar areas across the river, so we could monitor not only what's happening at the river itself, but then along our adjoining subbasins. There are a few existing wells along the Merced. There's some wells here that are USGS wells, the green wells. We're working with them to get access to those. There are also some wells that the East Turlock Subbasin GSA has identified along this reach of the Merced River. And so those are existing as well. But we would propose adding probably 3 other wells. And those are generalized locations. We'll, specify them as we move through the project. But we wanted to kind of identify general locations where we would see a well being installed. Then, as you can see, there isn't a lot along the San Joaquin at this point, although there may be some over here with the city of Modesto's water treatment plant and facilities here. And so we may be able to make use of a well here, which would move these a little bit. But we still think 2 along the San Joaquin River would be helpful. And then 3 along the Tuolumne River. And as you can see, there are a couple up here as well. And there may be some in the communities that we might be able to make use of. And so we'll move those wells around as well, just, based on need. So the concept here is that we have 8 wells along the rivers that we would make use of for the purposes that I mentioned, and that those costs would be split between the East Turlock and the West Turlock, because it's evaluating the basin requirements for SGMA. So it's not specific to the specific area. It's how the basin is managing its sustainable management requirements under SGMA. So then there are 3 other wells, numbered 1, 2, and 3. And those would be proposed to be put into the West Turlock Subbasin GSA's budget. And they're really monitoring, this number 2 could really be further into the West Turlock Subbasin area. But these wells would be monitoring water levels within the West Turlock Subbasin GSA. And number 1 and number 2 would be multi-completion wells. And so you would be monitoring both the upper and the lower aquifer discretely. So although they're labeled as 1 well, it's actually 2 wells in one site. And number 2 would also be used to evaluate subsidence. As we saw in some of the previous presentations, there is a little bit of data indicating that perhaps there's been an inch or 2 or so of, well, maybe a couple more, over a course of several years, that might have changed very minimally as far as elevation. And it's a question of whether or not that's actually occurred or not. But having a well in this location where you can monitor will be very helpful. And so we would be using that for that purpose as well. And so that's important. And then number 3 is in an area where there aren't a lot of monitoring wells. And it would just be 1 well where, because it's outside of the Corcoran clay, which is the end of the Corcoran clay is here in the red dashed line. And so this all has Corcoran clay, but over here there is none. And so it would just be 1 well. So in total, 13 wells are being proposed. And then this just describes a little bit about all of that, but I think I covered most of it, with the exception of the overall costs. The estimated cost for the river wells would be about $250,000 to each GSA, split over 2 years. And for the West Turlock Subbasin wells, those 3 wells just for the West Turlock Subbasin, it would be approximately 273,000 for the West Turlock only, split over 2 years. So so that's what I had for the wells. I'll stop there in case there's any questions.
Again, a comment from Kevin. At the ad hoc committee meetings, there seemed to be full support of the proposal as presented by Debbie. So nothing to add other than that.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay. And lastly, there's a proposed budget adjustment. So we are close to the end of the GSP process. As you all know, we're required to have the GSP submitted by January of this coming year, but there's a lot of work left to be done. There is still budget for a lot of work that's left to be done. But there have been additional things required that to move us forward that we had not anticipated as we developed the scope of work. And so although there is a possibility that some of the additional work could be covered in the existing funds, we just don't know that at this point in time. And so in order to be able to ensure that we have enough money to finish the project and get it submitted and respond to comments, we're proposing that we do a budget adjustment to facilitate paying for these additional things if the funding is required. And so those 3 items have to do with the additional ad hoc meetings that we have been having. We have found that it's been really helpful to work through things and develop recommendations to then bring back to the TAC. And I think it's been a very helpful process. But again, that was not initially envisioned as we developed the scope for the GSP work. So that is an ask of this item. Another is additional work that's being required to work through the sustainable management criteria and to develop that chapter. And as we move through this process, there's likely going to have to be revisions to that as well. And so that would be helpful to have the funding to be able to do that. And lastly, and this was an oversight, we did not budget for funding for assistance from the consultant team in responding to comments. And so that is quite obvious now that we're starting to look at that. And so that one's incorporated as well. So with that, I will, and the estimated cost for this whole portion is $76,000. So I'll stop there.
You want to stop sharing your screen and I can share my screen?
Yes, I just didn't know if anyone had any questions.
Debbie, this is Matt Beeman. If you can hear me.
Yes.
Can you clarify, responding to comments, is that to public comments or comments from the GSAs?
Public comments.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think the number, Matt, was about $16,000 or maybe $17,000 was in this, of that total 76. It was talked about at the ad hoc committee. There wasn't really agreement as to the number. There were some suggestions to budget for a lower number, and that's what I'm going to recommend that East Turlock Subbasin do. But you know, the West can do what it would like to do.
Okay, so I will stop sharing my screen. Let's see.
So this is kind of a summation of everything that we talked about and totaling it up per entity.
And again, Michael, this is the West Turlock, as Kevin said,
Yes.
they're going through their
Yep.
own budget process, and obviously there's not full agreement on what these costs are, but the West Turlock decided to at least put the money in the budget, and as we work forward, hopefully reduce some of those costs, but this is for budgeting purposes. So just maybe quickly walk us through a few columns, Michael. And
okay. So this is what we kind of collected for last year to give a comparison. The annual report broken down by member and their portion of it. The budget adjustment, again, per member. Then what we did here is we took the total amount for the river wells, and then this is broken down with cost sharing with the East and West. And so every member is paying proportionate. We're paying 50% this year in July and 50% in July of 2022. Then we move on to the interior wells. Again, this would be the total cost for those three interior wells, not close to the river. And then we broke it down. This would be a 50% installment payment for July of 21 and July of 22. And then obviously we have our annual dues for each member. That's a flat fee. And then just knowing, I know in the past, some members, their budgets haven't been as tight as other members. So we would be open to, if anyone wants to prepay on any of these items. So just pay one check for the wells for either one of those. We're open to that as well. And so then here is the total for this year. And then we would move over to the cost for the following year for just the wells. Any questions?
Michael, I know a lot of agencies who follow the state, funding state budget year, so it'll be July 1st. They're putting their budgets together. Column X is kind of hopefully the worst case scenario budget they need to prepare for this upcoming fiscal year 21-22.
Yes.
Right. And by agency. So if you can see your agency there, you can see the potential impact for the impact for your budget for next year. Any questions on those dollar amounts or how Michael got there, or other questions about
Michael?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Milt Treeweiler, Turlock citizen. I'm looking at these figures and I'm seeing that the city of Turlock is paying an equal amount as Turlock Irrigation District. Could you kind of explain that, and what is the reason for a city of Turlock paying the same amount as as TID? I'm sorry.
Okay. So, if I remember correctly, when this was negotiated a while ago, we looked at various opportunities or various options for how costs would be shared. And then sometimes based on cost, it affected the voting structure. And so the thought of the city of Turlock at that time was our dollar amount was fairly close to Turlock Irrigation District. And by paying a little bit more, by paying equal shares, the city of Turlock would have equal voting rights as Turlock Irrigation District. And also
okay,
the city,
thank you.
And city of Turlock being the largest urban groundwater user too.
So then our water department would be the people who are doing this voting, or who would be in the voting, on the voting? So for the city of Turlock, I'm speaking of the city of Turlock. Right.
So we have the Technical Advisory Committee, which is City of Turlock staff. And then on the board, the current representative is Andrew Nazrati, council member. So he represents the City of Turlock on the board.
Yes, correct. Yes. Okay, thank you for explaining that, Michael.
You're very welcome. All right, any questions for Michael? Okay, so this is not an action item today, but this will be going to the West Turlock GSA board on May 13th. Is that right, guys?
Yes.
Okay. And again, for the agencies who are members of the West Turlock, as you're putting your budgets together, these are the numbers you should be looking at. Okay, anything else? We finish up item number 5, budget recommendation. Okay, hearing none, we'll move to item number 6, public review process. Review a generalized and recommended approach for receiving, compiling, and developing responses to comments on the draft sustainability plan sections as they become available for public comment. So over to you again, Debbie.
Okay, let me try this again. Bear with me. Oh, birdie. So why is it not showing up? Oh, wait, here we go. If you scroll down, it helps. Okay, does that work?
Yep, you're good.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. So we at the ad hoc has been talking about the approach that might work best for receiving and reviewing public comments. And so this is the generalized approach that we'd like to kind of work through. So draft sections of the GSP will be developed by the technical team and reviewed by the technical advisory committee. Once we work through that process, then the draft sections would be presented to the groundwater sustainability agencies. And then those groundwater sustainability agencies would release them to the public for a 30-day review period. We're currently talking and considering how we might be able to have a joint GSA meeting, similar to what we do with a joint TAC meeting, to do that. And the pros and cons and how that might work. So there's logistics involved. I don't know if it will work, but it's something to being considered. So then the GSA board members would be reviewing those sections along with the public. So they may provide comments during that time frame as well. We'll gather those comments. And we've been developing different mechanisms for doing that. And Herb is going to show the website stuff that he's been pulling together for how to do that and information. And he's going to share that in a moment. Comments would be received via a variety of ways. And really, it's whatever is most convenient for the stakeholder. We could receive them via email. So an email could be sent to a designated address along with an attachment that includes the comments, or it could be just written in the email. We could receive it via the website. There's a portal page where people can either type in comments or cut and paste information into cells to send it to us. Or, of course, there's always the U.S. Postal Service and mail that way. And so that's the concept, is we want to make it as easy as possible for people to provide comments. Then we propose to compile those comments. And then the Technical Advisory Committee would recommend to the GSA responses or revisions based on those recommendations. And then the GSA would take action or, tell us what they'd like us to do. And in developing those responses and recommendations, we would be working with the technical team. So this it gives you an idea of the approach or model that we're hoping to use. The Merced Subbasin responses to comments is kind of the model that we're recommending using. And they did a couple things. For any response, so this is a response type and kind of an approach. And so for minor corrections and clarifications within the text, they're just went through and made direct edits to the GSP. And so that makes sense. And we would suggest that would be a great approach to doing that, rather than writing down, yes, we'll change this, or all of that in a response to comment section. We would just go ahead and make those changes. For substantive comments to the GSP, we would propose to develop categories of topics and develop a master response for each of those topic areas, rather than responding individually to each individual letter that we might receive or that sort of thing. So it would be grouped together a little more. But we would also be providing, and I'll show this in a minute, kind of a listing of the individual people who responded and submitted comments, and or entities, I should say, and then which topic areas their comments are covered under, so they could go back easily and read through those sections rather than having to read through the entire response to comments. So I think that would be more helpful for them to look and see how their comments would be addressed. And then for comments on future considerations for GSP implementation, that would be categorized and compiled as well. So, and they had a coordinating committee, so that's that. We don't currently, but in the future, perhaps that's something we might consider. So this is the example that I was trying to describe of how the Merced Subbasin kind of listed all of the different commenters and then the corresponding master responses to make it a little easier for them to go through and see how their comments were responded to. So that's the approach that we're proposing, and I will open it up for discussion, I guess, or questions.
Any questions for Debbie for the proposed approach to dealing with comments from the public? Again, we just looked at the Sigma regulations at the ad hoc meeting, and there's not really much. It's not like a SEQA document. We have to be very specific in responding to each individual comment. But what we saw other agencies, comments tend to fall in various broad categories. And then you can sort them into those categories and answer those, 4, 5, 6 comments by topic area, which will make it a little bit more streamlined. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but once we submit our plan to DWR, there's another opportunity for people to comment on the plan. Is that correct? There's a public comment period then too?
Yes. So the idea is that as each section comes out, we would make it available for comment. And then towards the end, hopefully those sections are addressed, but if there's any changes or that sort of thing, that people would have an opportunity to comment as well. And then there is also an opportunity at DWR. They have a mandatory, I think, 60-day comment period, although I think for the critically overdrafted basins, they extended that. So there's lots of opportunity to comment. And during these discussion as well. So yeah.
Good.
Oh, and then Herb was going to show the website. So
yeah.
I stop sharing.
Before you go on, yeah, you go ahead and stop sharing. I don't need it. Good job on the presentation, Debbie.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, we talked about this at ad hoc, and I think we're all in agreement. We just want to kind of streamline things. One little tidbit I want to mention that we didn't mention in the ad hoc was, we're talking, as you described, Debbie, of releasing chapters after they've been reviewed by the joint tax here to the public. And so there's an opportunity for comment there. And then when the whole plan is put together, there's an opportunity for the public to comment again. And then once it's submitted, of course, then they could comment, as Michael said, to DWR that, hey, you've got this plan submitted and these are our comments. So it's great. There's going to be a bunch of opportunities for the public to opine. I just thought of one shortcut that might help us budget-wise, and that is, and maybe this was discussed and I missed it, but that is, instead of asking for public comment once the chapters are released, why don't we just tell the public, here's the chapter. It's not going to change between now and when the final comes out. So you have extra time to look at it before the final draft or administrative draft comes out, and just take comments when the administrative draft comes out. I don't think there's any requirement in Sigma to have that 2-level review by the public before we finalize it, but just a suggestion.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay.
It's good ideas.
Yeah.
Debbie, do you want me to run through real quick the website?
Yes, that'd be great.
I'll do it quick. You see me texting. I actually have a technician that arrived at my house at a very, very prompt time.
I'm sorry.
No, he was supposed to be out earlier in the day, but he's here now. I could do this quickly though. You see here the website. You see here the website that we have. I've updated this corner over here with something, the GSP page that we have. You can get there by navigating to turlockgroundwater.org/GSP, or you can just come here and click this link. And so that's what I'm going to go over real quickly today. So this would be our groundwater sustainability plan page. There's some introductory language. It goes over the 3 ways that we're going to accept comments. Obviously through mail, Debbie mentioned that already. Email, this would send a direct email to turlockgroundwater@gmail.com. And people can email with attachments or without attachments, emails that way. And then also through the website, which I'll show you in a second, I have a link to. There's some instructions for how people can comment by way of email or snail mail, the United States Postal Service. And then there's instructions for how to comment using this site. And I'll just show you, there's a couple buttons here, one of which this one takes us to another page with a comment form for how to submit these comments. Again, you have the same 3 ways to submit comments there, a little bit of introductory language, and then a basic form that has name, organization, email, and then message. Debbie noted earlier that we do not have the capability currently to upload or attach documents to this. So theoretically, this comment form would be only for submitting comments that are either typed into the message or copied from an existing document into that. So there's a drawback to that. It strictly comes down to available funds. We would need to have a third-party service to do that. It's not included in our website subscription thus far. And I'll also note, as I go back to the previous page, our GSP page, at the bottom here, you could either click a button to jump down to it, or you could scroll down, are basically the sections of the groundwater sustainability plan. It's labeled or categorized into sections available for comment and sections not yet available for comment, because of course we're releasing them in a staged approach. So here you see section 1, 2, and 4. We have a listing that it's coming soon, all of them, and eventually there will be links here to be able to download those sections, because of course we're asking for people to comment. They need to be able to download them. So this is the part of the site where they would be located. And then you see the other sections not yet available for comment because they haven't been produced yet. And so that is the thought process behind the ways to comment and the way this portal or this page on our website will house the plan contents. Again, I'll say again, the 3 ways that people could submit comments: mail them to this address, to Turlock Irrigation District, click the link here and email them, either with an attachment or without an attachment. If someone's written a formal comment letter, they could attach it to an email and send to turlockgroundwater.org by clicking this link, or this page basically takes them to the portal that I just showed you with the comment form. So that's a quick overview of the site and the way we have it set up to receive comments, or at least allow people to know where comments can be received, the multiple ways, and how people can download sections of the GSP. I'll note that on our homepage, which I will navigate back to now, on our homepage, we will probably find a way to make the fact that it's been released prominent, either here where we have our headline, or up here in the green bar, or both. So it's not just going to be where people have to come over here and click it. It'll also probably be something here a little bit more prominent when we release sections as well. And we'll also be sending out notices through the email service we use to send out email notices. I think that's it. Debbie, did I miss anything?
No, that was great. Thank you so much, Herb.
Okay, and I will be right back. Give me 1 second.
Anything else on the public review process? Okay, thank you, Debbie and Herb, for covering that. So moving on to item number 7, Sigma related updates. This is when the TAC updates our participants about various things going on right now in the Sigma world. We have Herb up first on public outreach update, but I don't know if he's going to be back at the computer. So maybe grant update. Debbie, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So a couple things. I wanted to give a brief update, and the other members of the ad hoc can fill in where I've missed something. But I want to get a brief update on what we've been doing and working on. You've heard some of it, the public review process, the website, the other things. But we've also been working with the technical team on an initial sustainable yield analysis to better understand the amounts of projects and management actions that might be necessary as we move to focus on that component, the projects and management actions of the GSP in the coming months. So the GSP, as I understand, and Phyllis, you can correct me where I'm wrong, it requires that we do include sustainable yield estimates as a part of our water budget. So that's one area within the GSP where sustainable yield comes in. The other is that we're required to define sustainable yield as an amount of groundwater that can be withdrawn annually without causing undesirable results. So there's this interconnection between sustainable yield and the sustainable management criteria. So the final GSP model runs that we'll do will incorporate projects and management actions that will need to be able to kind of demonstrate that those projects and management actions are capable of avoiding undesirable results. And so that's going to be our goal in those modeling runs. And to do that fully, we need to fully develop and completely understand the sustainable management criteria. And that's not completely done yet. So that's why I was saying we're starting that process. It's going to be a bit iterative. We'll share that information as it becomes available, but it's a little premature at this point because we're still developing our initial sustainable management criteria. Beginning next week, the ad hoc has on their schedule to discuss an approach for the minimum thresholds for a reduction in groundwater and storage, which is another sustainability indicator. And that must be supported by the sustainable yield. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. And also next week, we'll be talking about water quality undesirable results, projects and management actions and data requests, as well as the modeling or the monitoring network that we'll be developing and the information that's available now. So there's a lot on the agenda for the ad hoc meeting next week. I'm not sure we'll be able to get through it all in one meeting, so we may have to schedule a follow-up one. But yeah, so we've got a lot taking place right now at the ad hoc. So I'll stop there, and if there's any questions to that, I'd be happy to try to answer them. And then I can go on and talk a little bit about, so that's kind of where we are with the GSP grant. And then I can talk a little bit about the other grant as well. Questions?
Thank you, Debbie. I just add in, not really a question. Yeah, the discussions so far on sustainable yield have been interesting and to me, and I'm learning a lot. So as we get more information, we'll definitely share it. I think the one tidbit, if you don't mind, and Phyllis, if I don't state this right, you can restate it for me. But you know, remember that we're doing modeling runs on sustainable yield to come up with not only numbers, but kind of a description of what it looks like. And we're looking at, if we don't do any management actions and we don't do any projects, how much reduction in demand would we have to do to achieve sustainability? So that's one kind of modeling run. And the other one's going to be, well, if we include the management actions and the projects, you know, how does that affect the sustainable yield? So just recognize that for TAC in general, that there's going to be kind of two ways to look at it, with and without projects and management actions. So the one we're focusing on right now is without projects and management actions. So I just wanted to add that tidbit.
Thank you, Kevin. That's helpful. And you're right. And as I understand it, and Phyllis, again, correct me if I'm wrong, the intent of that initial run without projects is to provide an estimate about what we need to include in the projects and management actions in order to be able to achieve that sustainability. So it's not to say that we think that's a reasonable approach, but it's to bracket it and to understand how much we need to incorporate into the projects, so that when we do that modeling with the projects, we're not having to do a gazillion iterations of the modeling to get to the right number. And so it's to kind of understand what the need is and then develop projects to accomplish that, and then run the model and demonstrate that it works. That's the concept, I think.
All right, Debbie, thank you. Herb looks like he came back. Do you want to update us on your public outreach update, maybe your grant submittal, Herb?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll start with that. We submitted the West Turlock Subbasin GSA on behalf of both GSAs, submitted the application that we've discussed in the past here, to DWR. It's their their facilitation support services program, and they have funds available for facilitation and outreach and assistance. And we've been working through the ad hoc communications group to create a application responses and a scope of work to attach to that application. And as of yesterday, we were able to submit that to DWR, and they have confirmed receipt of that. So we've asked for a few different things to see if they would help us through their contractors that they use to provide some various facilitation for public meetings the remainder of the year, and also for some other things that could be beneficial as we get closer to having a GSP be adopted toward the end of the year. And so that's good news. We'll hear back from them hopefully in the next few weeks or so regarding the status of our application. And when I hear from them, I'll of course update this group. So that was one item. Second item I have here is tomorrow we have our, I think it's our 4th or 5th groundwater lunch hour, virtual office hours. Tomorrow at 12:30, from 12:30 to 1:30. And the link is available in the flyer that is on our website. So just go to turlockgroundwater.org, find the red groundwater lunch hour button, and then click the flyer there, and you'll be able to jump in and join. So it's just informal. We'll be answering questions and providing a little bit of information of where we're at and where we're going in the GSP process. So if you have questions or you want to just kind of be a fly on the wall and listen, you're more than welcome to attend. And then lastly, we have some videos. We've added a couple videos on the Turlock Groundwater YouTube page. They're basically mashups or, shorter versions of the 5-minute video that we released about 2 years ago. And so we've put those up there and just to kind of create some new content. They cover basically, if I recall, the GSP process and then GSAs. So basically they answer the 2 questions, who are we as a subbasin and what are we doing creating a GSP? So those are up there, and I would encourage everybody to share those and check those out on our YouTube channel, Turlock Groundwater. That's it for me, unless there's any questions.
Are you tracking hits on the website, who watches the video, how often the video gets watched? Have we gone viral yet? Anything like that?
I don't think we've went viral yet, but yeah, we have metrics for all of that. The number of views for videos, and then number of hits on the webpage when people visit certain sections. So it'll actually, that's a good point, Michael. It'll come in handy a lot with once GSP sections start to get released. It'll be interesting to see how many people go to the page, download the documents, and comment. So that I'm assuming that page will probably be one of the more frequented pages on our website, but I'll be able to report that out as we move forward for the remainder of the year.
Thanks, Kirby. Everything else, Debbie, do you have anything just to close out?
Yes, sorry. We are still a couple other things. The ad hoc is still working through the final edits to the first couple sections. I think they're pretty close, but there's a little bit of work left to be done, and then we'll be sending it out to the TAC for their concurrence with respect to the edits. And these are kind of joint ad hoc recommended edits at this point. And then it'll be sent off to the consultant team, and hopefully we'll have the first couple of sections, actually section 1, 2, and 4, as Herb mentioned in his presentation. So that's great. The other thing is that we have the second grant, the Prop 68 grant, and I wanted to give you a brief update on that. We've been making great progress for the well installation. We have had a meeting last week out in the field with the consultants, as well as the TID staff that is working on the access agreements, and the property owners. And so we're hoping to have a bid process in late May through June, and then begin construction as early as July. There are a couple of cropping issues on a couple of the parcels that we're trying to work around. So the scheduling might shift a little bit for the installation. We're still working on a few things, but we're making progress. And so I'm pretty happy about that. So I wanted to report it. Yeah, and then the GRAT is continuing to move forward. They're going to be developing some prototypes and sharing it with the committee that's working on that. And so that's moving forward as well. And lastly, we have the PEIR. And so once we start getting into projects and management actions, we're going to bring them in because we want them to be a part of the process. And because that's really what would be evaluated as you go through the PEIR. And so So yeah, so that everything on that end is moving forward as well. That's all I had, unless there's questions.
Any questions for Debbie? Sounds not. So moving to item 8. Our next special meeting is scheduled for so 2 weeks from now, sorry, May 13th, 2021, which also happens to be the same day as a GSA board meeting. And then one after that is May 27th. So, and Debbie's reminded me that actually we do not have a forum on West Turlock. Matt Beeman is Merced ID, not Merced County. I apologize, Matt, for miscounting you. But having said that, it doesn't really matter because we're not taking any action items today, thank goodness. So,
well, Michael, I was a little late today. I don't know if I make the difference or not.
Well, we have Mr. Elves representing you before Miguel. So we felt like we had a City of Modesto reps. We already counted Modesto.
Okay.
Unfortunately,
All
we can't count you twice. So
okay.
For that reason. So, and Kevin, you never called your group to order because at the time we didn't have a group. So
yeah, Dennis did come. However you guys want to do it, Valerie's on the line. So I think if you don't have a quorum, you don't have to do minutes. Is that correct, Valerie? Or is it best to do meeting notes even though we didn't have a quorum?
I would do meeting notes. Just because we didn't take any action on anything, we're probably safe. But
yeah,
the real question is, do you need to adjourn a non-meeting?
Right.
It's the real kicker.
Well, Dennis is here, so I don't know what time you came in, Dennis, but I wrote you down about 2:25. So we did have a quorum as of then, Michael, just to mess things up on you.
I messes things up for you, not for me.
Okay. So we can adjourn the east side.
I'd say this meeting definitely happened because I was here, but I don't think we need to adjourn because it actually was not a formal meeting.
Okay. I just assume do that if nobody objects.
Yeah, okay. And so,
We'll just
like I mentioned, the next meeting is May 13th. And we'll have a regular meeting on the 27th. A lot of things are happening right now. Your ad hoc group is working very, very hard, as are your consultant team. So the next kind of 3 months are going to be really good as we get these draft chapters put together and out to the public and start getting some public review and input. So with that, I'll say this meeting is officially done. Not adjourned, it's just done because it never started. And then I'll see you guys on May 13th.